Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Brian Davis here from Spark Rental. Super glad to be with you. And I'm super excited to have a special guest with us today, Chris Prefontaine, easy for me to say, right? From from smartrealestatecoach.com. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet, Brian. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. So Chris and I actually chatted not long ago on his podcast. So
Yeah.
we're really excited to return the favor here and have him on and talk about his real estate journey. So on that note, Chris, let's rewind the clock and start at the beginning. How did you get into real estate in the first place?
Yeah, when you say rewind the clock, I'll get the listeners nervous because it goes 32 years, but we'll be brief. Yeah, I grew up in a family company, Brian, but it wasn't real estate. It was a brick and mortar business, welding supply business. But my dad would build his buildings and lease them back to himself. And as a kid, I didn't get that. But as I get older, I said, that's pretty cool. So that's what I was exposed to. And then some of his center of influence obviously did real estate. And so I started real estate in 91, building some homes. And then I had a brokerage. And then I did some of my own investments. And that all led to the lovely crash of '08. And then '08 caused us to go, whoa, okay, put the brakes on. What are we going to do here? Because I got beat up financially. So we sort of set up some rules. Okay, no signing personally with banks, no taking out bank loans. We only buy on creative real estate. We call it buying on terms.
All right. Well, so we covered a lot of years there in in a short amount of seconds. So can you tell us about how you scaled up past your first deal or two? Because they start with a small single family home as a rental property or as a flip. And then they gradually kind of work their way up and experiment from there. So, tell us about how you scaled up a little bit. And then I want to dig deeper into the crash of '08 and how that impacted you guys and what you guys have started doing differently over the last 15 years or so.
Yeah. So the scale up, I do remember well, only because I'll go from the crash, only because that's where we live today. And that's in the creative real estate world. And keep in mind, when I say I'll start from there, for the audience to know, I had nothing. Like my credit went from high sevens or whatever you can go to 8 to in the toilet, and then no cash, everything cashed out. So I literally wasn't negative on paper. I was negative. And so I started the easiest way I could generate cash, which was in our world, we still do creative real estate, but when we procure our buyer, our rent-to-own buyer for a particular house, we'll talk about how we buy them in a minute. We assign it back to the seller. So it was an assignment thing. I call it an assign out, an AO, but it generated cash quickly. But then I felt like, okay, I'm kind of on a treadmill, just like I was when I was a broker in the 90s. Like, what's the difference here? So I sort of created and then trademarked federally the 3 payday system. And then the scale was a little bit easier then because I started to stay in the middle of properties. So I would buy on lease purchase or owner financing or subject to existing financing, those 3 ways. And it's not hard to scale that way only because, and I'm not saying it's easy, but it's simple because once you start putting deals, let's say on your spreadsheet, you start stacking them up with 3 paydays. These deals are 3 paydays are like now money, continuous money, and long-term money. So when you start putting these on, they have all different terms, and you're scattering your cash flow throughout, 2 to 5 years very quickly. I remember like it was yesterday when I went from the mindset of I got to scale this. From the onesie twosies to I have to scale. It was not long. It was like maybe 12 or 13 deals in where my 3 paydays added up to like $1 million. I said, whoa, okay, I got something here. And that's when we started kind of scaling even bigger and then teaching it around the country.
All right. So yeah, again, we're covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time there. I love that. I love that you were packing a lot in. But so how does that work? So you buy properties, either with seller financing or on a lease purchase, like an installment contract, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or what was the third option that you do?
Subject to existing financing. So
subject to existing, yeah.
Yeah, that person's more, that seller's more, that avatar's more like, hey, I need financial relief. Whereas the owner financing, we go after free and clear property. So they're like, well, I'm fine. I just want my price and I can wait. Give me a good term, So there's 2 different types of avatar there.
You don't work with any mortgage lenders, banks, institutional lenders at all anymore?
No, not since that, because I lived through coming out of the crash, getting chased by banks with 20-something properties with my name on it. No, thank you. So I just don't teach that anymore.
Well, yeah, I came out rather scathed from the from the crash as well.
I think I
I certainly know how that goes. So how do you go about finding these properties? How do you go about finding your deals?
We have virtual assistants who call. You don't have to. You can do it yourself, right, once you learn the script. But we do the initial call with a VA, and they will call for sale by owners. not unlike other investors, for rent by owner, tired landlords, expired listings that don't sell, because those are on the rise now, right, with the market change. And then
sure.
if a particular student or our family, because we do it too, running out of leads in those categories, we either expand geographically in a bigger radius, or we just start adding some niche lists like absentee owners, free and clear. I love. So they get this house that they don't occupy all the time, maybe a second home, and it's free and clear. Those are great deals right now. All from COVID till now, they're still great deals. So those are just some ideas on where we get them.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Do you have any tips for how people can streamline that process of identifying some of those properties? Because
I would just use a service. There are many. We use My Plus Leads, and we have since 2012. We stayed with them because they are one of the only services that can get us, Brian, the expired listings without being a realtor, and that's a big part of our business. So we stay with them for that reason.
No, so you used to be a broker, but I guess you have surrendered your broker's license?
I did back in 2000 and just before I started terms, 11 or 12. And the reason was this, and this is not, I was a broker owner even, so this is not against realtors. What the fact is, when I had it, it was more work and more drama when I would go into an area or call on a house and they'd think I was trying to get a listing. And I wasn't. I was calling as an investor. So the second I dropped that, and now realtors call and actually cooperate and want to help and refer back and forth, it's so much healthier. So it was a good move for me. Others like having a license to capitalize on both, and that's fine too. There's no wrong answer there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know a lot of investors, they feel a little torn about getting their license. They don't necessarily want to have to disclose that they're a realtor or, in your case, a broker, and some of the legal entanglements that come with that. But of course, they do want direct access to the MLS, and they a lot of times.
Can I give my take on that without stepping on any realtor toes? I got a bunch of friends and people on my podcast, but my opinion, that's all it is you have all these CEUs. You have a lot of time in there to do CEUs in most states, continuing education, and the fees that go along with it. And frankly, It's not, if you go into creative real estate, now I'm not talking about the niches, there's zero reason, because we don't use the MLS. We just don't. Now, do we have some good, strong relationships with realtors that when they get an expired or an over leveraged or something they can't list or sell, do they refer to us? Yep. And do we refer to them when we get a conventional sale? We just want to blow it up. Yeah. So there's good relationships there. I just think it outweighs the drama that goes on if you were licensed. That's all. My opinion.
No, that makes total sense. And it can be onerous, some of the continuing education, the fees, working under an existing broker, and they might have expectations that you do a certain amount of volume as a realtor, every year. So I totally get it.
Yeah. And does the broker owner understand and want to support creative real estate? Some don't. I've run into that in the Wicked Smart community. A student will come to me and go, my broker owner doesn't want to do that. Then go find another one. If you want to be a broker, you got to find someone or an agent. Find a broker that supports you. That's all.
So through Smart Real Estate Coach, you obviously coach novice investors on how to buy properties, how to build cash flow from real estate. Tell us more about exactly what kind of strategy you teach, and what you're what you're teaching to your students.
So we teach the exact way we buy that you and I were just talking about, those three ways. Here's the difference. There's one thing, and I think you'll agree with this. I want to know your opinion on this. There's one thing in the industry to sell a product or, teach a certain thing, but it's another thing to actually do deals with someone, because sadly people go to seminars and they take courses, and then they go out in the real world and oh my God, I didn't know that happened. So we actually, it's interactive. I think it's the best way to learn. We partner with the students in a sense. They own it. We just get paid a revenue share on the deal. They pay us up front to come in our program, and then we rev share. Now that's a win-win, because we want one thing. You get a property, we want to get our exit together with you, and we want to exit together. So we rev share and both win, and we keep parlaying deals together. That's pretty cool, because I can't tell you how many pivots come up. And you know this. I interviewed you. I know you've been through with your deals. How many pivots come up in even one deal that you can't put in a textbook? I mean, you just can't. There's so many little things. So that's why I think it's important to do that model. That's what we do.
No, it makes total sense. And, I couldn't agree more. And this is exactly where my partner, Denny, and I are coming from as well. For many years, we were teaching courses and seminars on real estate investing, but it's a very crowded space. Everyone and their mother is out there, trying to be guru-ish or whatever, teaching real estate investing. But, the fact is, one, it's too crowded, and two, people show up for your seminar or whatever, and then they go on, and then half of them don't end up using what they learned. It's
Right.
not
Sadly.
valuable to them. And I learned not that long ago, but I wish I learned this earlier, that most people don't actually want to learn how to fish. They just want you to hand them the fish. Now, in your case, you're working with
society. Yeah.
Yeah. You're working with people who truly do want to get hands-on with their investing, so that's a little different. But in our case, so we decided to launch a real estate investment club specifically for that, where we are investing our own money alongside our members every single month in these deals. And we don't get a cut of it. We don't do any of that. It's just a flat membership fee. But we give them the fish every month, basically.
Yeah. I remember that.
And so I totally understand and appreciate where you're coming from there with getting in the trenches, investing alongside your students.
Well, yeah, because they have it for life, right? Once you teach them, they really do. If they never talk to us again, I said this to a person on my show earlier today. I said, she was in my community. I said, look, I love having you in the community. I hope you stay forever. But if you don't, you have this for life. It's a skill set. You can buy your own house with it. You can help family with it, etc.
Yeah. And I mean, you get paid based on the results that you deliver for your students. It's not just a weekend seminar or whatever.
Right.
You're out there, you only get paid if they are winning. So I love that.
100%.
So I'd like to ask this question of, what was the low point in your story? That point where all hope seemed lost. Yeah. And, what happened? How'd you come out of it? What'd you learn from it? Tell us about that low point in your story arc.
Yeah. It was definitely February of 2008. Like, I can remember that like it was yesterday. And when they get the book, it's literally at the front of it. I want them to know, just for context, what, how, and what happened. But it was like a light switch went off, because I had, I think, 23 or so properties. I was on all of them personally, signed on bank loans, which I thought that's what you do. But I was 18 years in by that. I was like, okay, I think that's what you do. So the problem was that took 4 years, February of 8 to February of 12, to wind out. Wind out meaning a couple of them foreclosed, a couple workouts, a couple liquidate. It was a lot. My son was in the office next to me for those years. So talk about education. He didn't go to college. He came right to real estate, and he listened to all that. And so I know it's seasoned him because of that. Now he's still with me all these years. So that was a tough road to hoe. But as I said earlier, when we first started, that made us re-engineer the business. Because I was like, do I even want to do this again? And if we do, what are the rules? And now, this is why we're here. So you couldn't have convinced me then that it was good, but it was the best thing that happened.
Yeah. No, I've heard a lot of stories like that, and I've lived through a lot of that pain and suffering myself from 2008. Yeah. I had, I think, 13 properties at that point, and they're all gone in one way or another now. Yeah, many of them not happily, right? Yeah. So now I feel you 100% there. So if you were to give 2 or 3 baseline tips, or your best tips to people who are either just getting into real estate investing or are looking to scale and ratchet up, what would those tips be?
Well, okay, so here's a good one for anyone. Doesn't matter what industry, but let's say it doesn't matter where you are in real estate, and that is 3 steps. 1, find one of the niches to get behind. Like, I'm not so naive to think everybody should do creative real estate. I'm biased. I think it's operates in all markets, but you have an amazing niche. Because I interviewed you, I know that. So find one you like, right? And then you can get behind morally, ethically, value-wise. Second, find someone or a group, whatever you can attach to, who has been there, done that, what you want to do, but still current. Because there's people that teach, as you know, that did a deal 25 years ago, and that's dangerous because there's too many changes. And then also, before I go to step 3 and the final step, make sure that person is someone you can align with in every way too. Because you and I both know people that have built a business and destroyed their life because of it, or a relationship with a child or a spouse. Not worth it. So, in my opinion, so find something you can attach to that way. And then third, put the blinders on for 3 to 7 years. This is critical because people, unfortunately, in society right now, people are marketing to you and I and to others like get rich quick tomorrow. No, it's not. But it is for life, and it is super lucrative and fun when you do it right. So 3 to 7 years. Now, why do I say 3 to 7? I always said 3 to people in my community because I want them to come in, and if they get a curveball, but they're thinking 3 years, they'll go, okay, I got 3 years to commit. Not that it'll take 3 years to do a deal. Just commit for 3 years. Then I had Brian Tracy on my show, 2 or 3 years ago, and he was already in his low 80s. And he said, I said that like it was a given because everybody agrees with me with 3 years. And he said, no, it's not 3, it's 7. And he said, here's why, Chris, it takes 2 or 3 years. You're going to really suck for a while. And then 2 or 3 years, you're going to feel like you got your legs, and then you'll have success. He said, trust me, I've been broke twice. So that's coming from a guy who's written, I don't know, 70 books, and he's been around forever in our space. So now I say 3 to 7 to respect him.
I love Brian Tracy, by the way, and I love that he was on your show. And now I feel super privileged that I was on the same show that Brian Tracy was on. So I love that. So Chris, you have a free book for our audience members. Tell us about that book.
Yeah, so this book is Real Estate on Your Terms. It was an Amazon bestseller in like 17 or 18, and then coincidentally to COVID, we started revising it like in January of 20. So when COVID hit, we said, okay, perfect. Got a lot of challenges here. Let's kind of build in the book what happened and what we can do. So it's revised, second edition. You don't have to go to Amazon. We literally ship a hard copy from our office in Rhode Island. It's not one of those offers that you say put a card in for shipping, even though they said free. No card, no nothing. Just your name and address. We'll get it out to you. Just allow us a couple weeks, right? Just go to wickedsmartbooks.com, wickedsmartbooks.com/Brian. Real simple.
That's awesome. I love that. We will include a link to that in the comments. And I love that, it's not free plus shipping, which says, feels kind of grimy in today's world. It's just free. So thank you for that offer for our listeners. How else can people connect with you?
They can go to, if they don't mind listening to me for another hour, they can go to a free class because I'm big on free, right? So they can pick a niche. If they don't like it, okay. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class, and that'll get them, really show them, like we're talking about these deals at a high level, but it'll show them how do we get deals? Why do sellers do it? Why do buyers do it? How do we exit? And then it'll show the 3 paydays on real deals, the case studies. So it's pretty cool. Come join me there.
I love it. Chris, any final tips or parting thoughts before we wrap up?
The market's crazy. Now, I don't know when this is going to air, but when I say crazy, it's just because the media thinks it's crazy. There are many people very, very bullish in our space about real estate. I had one on my show today. So just know that you don't have to worry about shifts and trends and lows and highs. Learn how to pivot in it. Learn how to get creative in creative real estate, and learn how to pivot in any market, and you'll have fun and you won't be stressed.
Well, I love that. And I'm a big fan of not trying to time the market in just that dollar cost averaging of, continuing to invest month in, month out. Yeah. Because the people who try to time the market tend to end up getting burned by the market. There are a lot of people out there that are smarter than me anyway, and, better informed than I am, who still mess that up timing the market. So
even the billionaires. Yep.
Yeah. It's hubris to think that you can time the market better than, the most informed people in the world with, all their teams of analysts behind them. So anyway, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks,
and we look forward to, yeah, absolutely. And, in the meantime, everyone out there, please stay in touch, support at sparkrental.com, rate, review the podcast if you've enjoyed it, and we will catch you on the flip side. Bye now.